Okay, we're going. Well, hello everybody. It's me again. And today I'm going to announce we're going to do a high performance Slant 6 series. And what do I mean by a high performance Slant 6? If you ever read the All Par site and you read the documentation that engineers for the Slant 6 wrote and how they did their documentaries and stuff, the Slant 6 was developed in 1958, 1959. It was designed to power a Lancer or a Valiant. They were compact cars. They weighed around 2,500 pounds when brand new. Those cars were designed before the interstate system was put in, and they were not designed to drive much over 60 miles an hour. Contrast today, where the interstate system's in, you can drive anywhere in the country in the interstate system. The lowest speed is usually around 70, especially on the open highways. Some places like Idaho and Montana it gets up to 80 plus. And the Slant 6 wasn't really designed to do that. So there is a concerning problems with the engine that doesn't really like living at the 3,000 and plus above RPM range of running one of those cars at 80 miles an hour requires you to do, especially if you want to do it for hours on end. So my high performance is to make a Slant 6 run at 80 miles an hour for 8 hours a day. And to do that, you need to do some oil system mods. You need to think hard on how the airflow and stuff goes through the engine. You got to realize you're not going to put out 300 horse out of a Slant 6. I'm sorry, it doesn't happen. I don't care what the guy in the black Valiant says with his rumpy rump little car. It doesn't put 300 horse out. I'm sure everybody has seen the yellow and black Dart, 68 Dart that races on, has a video out on YouTube about running the quarter mile 12 seconds with 18 pounds of boost. And there's a 66 bronze Dart that does the same thing. You may or may not have seen the Finnish Valiant from a few years ago that has triple Webers on it, and they're running the quarter in 11 seconds, I think. Those are not stock engines. They like to say, oh, it's a stock block. Well, it may be, but they have done something to it to make it live at that level. We are not going to go that far. We're not going to try to make a 300 horsepower NA engine that runs on the street. It won't happen. We're not going to go out and try to duplicate what Power Nation did and makes a 350 horsepower turbo Slant 6 that runs on fuel injection and all this fancy stuff that somebody else paid for. Because I know he's paying me to do this, okay? Nobody gives me contingency money to drop a turbo on a Slant or put EFI on a Slant or any of that stuff. So we're going to build basically a analog engine. It's going to have a carburetor. It's going to have an uprated camshaft. It's going to have a oil system mods to make it live. We're going to follow the Dutra ones that he outlines on the slant6.org site in the document areas. And we're going to put the Slant Daily Garage oil mod for the rocker arms in it. And that should hopefully make the engine live at 80 miles an hour for 8 hours a day. Because I would like to drive the car. You can tell we have a whole table full of parts. We have a reground crankshaft, we have pistons, we have rods. We have rods with ARP bolts in them. We got oil pumps and studs for the cylinder head and the crank and all sorts of wonderful things like that. And we're going to show how to stick them in the engine and fire it up and make a running car out of it. And that's basically what we're going to do. Let's see, we're at 6 minutes. The block we're going to use is a 1978 block. It was original Super 6 engine block from a Aspen, I believe. It has been bored 60 over. It has been decked 50,000. It was the block that was used to be in my Dart. With the cylinder head I had on the Dart, in that I had roughly about a 9 1/4 compression ratio. We're going to run a turbo on this engine, and we don't want a 9 1/4 compression ratio. We want something like down to 8 1/4, maybe even lower. When they first started doing turbochargers in the Porsche engines, it's rumored that Porsche tried a 6.5 compression ratio on their flat 6, and it did not work well. So they had to up it. And we're not going to go try to go that low because it just won't work. We are going to use a draw-through system, not a blow-through system. And we're using a draw-through system too because I think street cars need a choke. And you can't do that with blowing through a carburetor. I think street cars need a vacuum advance, and I think they need a timing advance and distributor. Once again, race cars don't do that. And people who think they are going to do that run on the road, they're going to have crappy fuel mileage and everything else. I'm not building this engine to do fuel mileage, do good fuel mileage. I expect it to get at least 17 miles to the gallon. That's what my stock Slant 6 did back in 1978 when I was the second owner of a 70 Dodge Dart Custom. 2-door. Yeah. What else do we want to cover? So we're going to start. We're going to have to break this up into sections. We're not going to have all one big gigantic video. That'd be too long. We're going to do a block prep session. We're going to install the cam in a session. We're going to put the crank in a session. We're going to probably hang pistons and pins and put rings on it and stick it in the engine in a session. Check timing, checking the timing valve, blah blah blah. The timing chain. We're not using a high performance timing chain. We're using a rather heavy duty stock replacement timing chain. We're not running high valve springs. We're running stock springs. We're not going to run a 3 valve job. We're running the standard 45-degree valve job. And we're doing that because we want to transfer as much heat out of the pistons into the cylinder head so they can disperse through the cooling system. We are going to run headers, and we're going to build an intake manifold. These are all going to come up in the future as we do it. The turbo I have, I mentioned in the last video, I am stumbling on my words today. Duh. The turbocharger I'm using, which I mentioned in the last video, is from an 83 Buick Riviera. This is not a high performance turbo. It was a good enough turbo to make Grandma be able to drive her Buick Riviera to Sunday church a little bit faster than she would with a stock 235 Buick V6. I'm all over the place today. The difference between this and one from, say, a Rego is the Rego has a 90-degree elbow on the end of the turbo. This one does not. It has a straight outlet, so I can set the turbo down next to the intake manifold and not worry about hood clearance. I don't want to put a hood scoop on the car, so I worry about that. If I use a standard run-of-the-mill Rego or GN style turbo, I have to put a hood scoop on. I don't want to do that. What else we're going to talk about? Not sure. I think that's it for today. And we'll get started on it real soon. My son is anxious to get help me. And I'm anxious to let him help me and pick some stuff up. I was out in the garage earlier today, and I had a box full of stuff I took off the engine in the duster for, doing the engine swap. And it's in the way it had to walk. And I said, well, I reach down and pick that up and move it out of the way. And I go, no, I can't do that. I'm on light duty. I have to have my son come out and do that for me. It's not fun. But anyway, till next time, you have a good day.